Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Yeah. Secret Hyde stream. No going live tweet tonight. No. We are not doing that tonight. Nope. How's the upload speed? We're good. The sound... Well, the volume looks fine to me. I've been a little bit busy behind the scenes, so that might be a little bit off. Probably okay. I think it's about where I have it usually, yeah. Bum 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 bum. Yeah, okay. Let's turn it down just a tiny bit. There we go. I think I like the looks of that better. Heart. Thank you. Hey there. Hi there. Hyde here. And you may notice things look a little bit different today, right? Yeah, just a tiny bit different. I have altered the overlay. And by overlay, I mean overlays, right? Because it's actually two of them. Yeah. Hey there, hi there, Hyde here. Last week. Let's talk about last week first, right? I had to, skip my usual streaming time. I don't like doing that. I do feel bad about skipping my usual stream, you know? Like, oh, I've forgotten the controls. It's been a while since I've played, you know? Give me a little bit of time to knock the rust off, as it were. Yeah. Last week, I had a family engagement to attend. Yes, that happens, right? From time to time. I happen to live pretty close to my family, the most of them. Some of them live out of, you know, I live in the USA. So, some of them live out of state, but most of them I live near. So, unfortunately, that means I have to attend family engagements every now and then. And Father's Day, thankfully my father is still alive, and thankfully I have a good relationship with my father. So yeah, I ended up having to go to a family dinner with some of my family to celebrate my father for Father's Day. That seems to be a US thing, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that Canada, Canada, yes, has a different Father's Day than the USA. Happens all the time, right? Like, there are international holidays where they happen to be the same day, even if they are different time zones. Like, it's still... I'll give you an example. Christmas is always December 25th, right? Even in places that don't traditionally celebrate Christmas. They're not typically, well, let's call them adopters of Christmas, right? Places like Japan will still celebrate Christmas on December 25th, even though their December 25th may be a different day because of their time zone, right? But there are also days out there which are completely different, holidays out there, celebrated on completely different days. For example, Canadian Thanksgiving is a different day from American Thanksgiving, and I'm pretty sure Father's Day and Mother's Day fall in the same boat there. If you think about it, Thanksgiving might be one of the most American holidays out there, right? Yeah, Thanksgiving, if you don't know, if you're not American. It seems like you started stream earlier than usual. Yes, I did. Hi, Diana. Welcome back. I hope that means your defense went well. I did start a little bit earlier. I didn't even announce the stream, right? I haven't been feeling well as of late. No, do not worry. I don't want to cause worry. Just a cold. Because I've been seeing my family a lot. I've seen a lot of children, nieces and nephews. You know how it goes, right? And they're vectors for disease, right? Yeah, they're almost as bad as little rats. Oh, you're still suffering? I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad you were able to make it here. Yeah. You do have my sympathy. Uh, I understand that those defenses are brutal, right? Like, I've never had it firsthand. My understanding comes from secondhand knowledge, so maybe it's better to say I don't understand exactly how brutal it is. But it does seem fairly difficult, and I do not envy your position. I hope your suffering will end soon. Little walking petri dishes, that's right. I like to think of them as bioweapons, right? Like, Umbrella spent all of their money trying to infect people with the T-virus through leeches? No. No, they could have just done it through, like, infecting children. That would have been a much darker Resident Evil story. Then again, like, Resident Evil is a pretty dark story to begin with. Oh, it's not even written yet? Ooh. Ooh. So it's very infancy-esque coughing baby. Luckily, my nieces and nephew, because I'm an old... Or yeah, my nieces and nephews, because I'm an old man, are fairly old now, most of them. So they do have, so long as their parents have taught them so, some basic manners when it comes to not infecting other people. I'm lucky there. I remember when my one niece was probably 2 or 3, and she would just sneeze in people's faces, right? It's probably a common occurrence, having a child sneeze in your face. You get over the grossness pretty quickly after the first sneeze in your face. It's especially bad like when you're talking and your mouth is open and they just sneeze right in your mouth. Yeah. I kind of wished at that point in my life that I had one of those salad bar guards, you know? The clear plastic shields or sneeze guards. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. They're in every buffet, right? At least the good buffets. If your buffet does not have a sneeze guard, I have to worry about you, right? That's like a vector for disease. We got lucky there. I wasn't even trying for that shot. I could have probably fooled you and said, oh yeah, look at me. I made this trick shot. But no, not today. Yeah. Luckily that there are no babies left in my family. No, they're all much older, much more mature for the most part. Huh? Sell the plastic shield face mask? Ah, I've seen those. I have a respirator. I used to use it for ceramics, right? When you're mixing up glazes for ceramics, you have all of these different minerals that are ground finely into a powder, right? So you have to be very careful about breathing in that mineral dust. I've always considered going to a family gathering with one of those on. I think it'd probably be for the best, right? Like, I feel bad, right? Like, their family, I shouldn't treat them as vectors of disease. But me being me, I always end up sick after I go to family gatherings. And that happened again, as it were. I can't avoid it. It's just part of being a smoker, I think. Even though everyone in my family, they're like smokers as well. That's how I got into it, right? I didn't have a chance, really. Sometimes you have a chance, sometimes you don't. This time, I did not. Love doing ceramics? Oh, your high school had a ceramics studio. You're lucky. Oh, yeah, yeah. It is very expensive. That's the truth, isn't it, Diana? If your high school had a ceramics, uh, what would you call it? Not studio, but a kiln. If your high school had a kiln, they either had the electric kiln or a soda-fired kiln, something that would be like wood-powered. It's a funny thing to say, right? Wood-powered kiln. But it's true, right? The soda kilns are often wood-powered kilns. um, I imagine it was probably electric kilns. Those things are very easy to use, very nice to have. Uh, as long as you have the right electrical, what is it, output, I guess, you can put that in your own home. And they are pretty expensive. We're talking a couple $1,000s. Don't get me wrong. Then there's upkeep on the heating elements and all the cones that you would need to check the heating as you're heating the kiln. Sure, there are definitely a lot of expenses in ceramics. And I hear you. It's so fun to make ceramic sculptures or even dishes. If you want to do mugs with a throwing wheel or something, it is a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed using my hands when it comes to art, yeah, art type things. But yeah, it is definitely expensive. I can see why you would not be doing it right now. Yep. Mm-hmm. Had a kiln. Electric. Oh, you helped load and unload it. Oh, wow. um, in my high school, we did not have a ceramic studio, unfortunately. And I did not take any of the arts courses in my high school. It was mostly focused on painting in high school, yeah. Painting, charcoal, sketching, things like that. And I have no talent for 2D art. The only talent I have is for sculpting and a little bit of modeling as well. There is a difference, right? Ah, you love the wheel specifically? I think we talked about this before, Diana. I think you told me about liking the wheel before. um, the only thing I have to say about the wheel in high schools is you have to be very careful with what kind of clay you're using. When I first picked up wheel throwing, we had to use terracotta. If you know anything about terracotta, it is not fun to use. It uses a lot of grog. Grog is what they call crushed up bits of fired clay that didn't make it to the stage of being glazed, right? They would crush up little bits of ceramic cups and plates and even sculptures that would crack or explode in the kiln, and they would mix that into their next batch of terracotta clay, and that would be called grog. Every ceramic studio has a specific blend, and even the gray earthenware, stoneware, whatever you're using, even the, well, I don't know about porcelain. The porcelain might be pure, but I know the red and gray earthenware typically has grog mixed in as well. Yes, grog is evil. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? Always avoided it. You're very lucky if you could avoid the grog. I could not avoid it. When I was taking my first ceramics course in college, I had a new professor. They were on a trial basis, as it were, and they were some pretty hot stuff in the ceramic sculpture world. And they didn't feel like teaching. Surprise. They just wanted to make their own sculptures. And they thought, well, I could teach and get paid for it. So my first experience with wheel throwing was with a high grog terracotta. And if you know anything about wheel throwing, teacher liked you, huh? Oh, you are so lucky. Getting fresh clay is a curse and a blessing, isn't it? The way it fires is a little bit different from grogged clay. That's the curse, right? Grogged clay typically fires a little bit easier. It's more forgiving. but it also works a lot harder. If you're trying to make anything smooth, getting a huge chunk of grog in your clay just absolutely ruins it. You'll get a pocket, and you can't smooth it down because it's already fired. What are you gonna do with that? You have to sand it down afterwards. It was always a pain. You're very lucky that you did not have to deal with that. I'm not jealous or anything. I'm just trying to explain how lucky you are. Yes, yes. The pockets were terrible. It's true. I will say, however, when I got into sculpture in the later years, my other courses in ceramics, it was useful to have grog, because I would often be letting my sculptures dry in very large pieces, right? So sometimes the drying was a little bit uneven, and grog tends to be more forgiving because it's already baked, right? So the grog will help you uh, not have as many cracks, hopefully. But when you're throwing with it, you're putting a ball of clay on a spinning wheel, and the wheels can spin as fast or as slow as you want them to, but there are chunks of stone in there which are harder than human flesh, often sharper too, because these are little exploded or cracked or crushed bits of ceramic, right? Yeah. So you can imagine how rough your hands end up, right? It cuts them up pretty badly. So as Diana here knows, it is definitely preferable if you feel like saving your fingers to use ungrogged clay. Yeah. I don't even know how we got talking about grog and clay, but it's true. I did not have the best first experiences with throwing wheels. I still, to this day, hate throwing wheels for exactly that reason. And I know, porcelain is very smooth. Porcelain, fantastic to work with. I don't hate it at all. If you're gonna throw with porcelain. I know it's expensive, right? The thing about porcelain is it's almost pure kaolinite. Kaolinite is a very specific clay mineral. There are many clay minerals, right? They're called phyllosilicates. Not all phyllosilicates are clay minerals, mind you. There are other phyllosilicates like muscovite and biotite and phlogopyle. Phlogopyle is one of my favorite mineral names. Phlogopyle. Those are all like micas. But there are also clays like montmorillonite. Montmorillonite's a fun word too. Anyway, kaolinite is pretty much what porcelain is. Yeah. And it's just a very pure, very white clay. Very easy to work with, very smooth. You don't typically grog that, I don't think. I didn't. We never did when we were mixing it. But maybe other people do. Like, I shouldn't be so quick to say, you never grog kaolinite. Because maybe you do. Maybe you do grog it. I have never grogged it. And I had to use big industrial mixers to make clay batches when I was in college, right? Yeah. That was part of the grade. We had to mix batches of clay. Usually 50 to 250 pounds of clay. And we would use this old bread making machine, right? It was this huge machine that would just knead bread. And they repurposed it for making different batches of clay. And you had to be very careful with mixes, right? Otherwise, they would not work as well. Never learned much about different types of clay? You only had one type in... Oh, I see. What type did you have, Diana? Was it a gray earthenware? Or perhaps a red earthenware? Hopefully it wasn't terracotta. Like, terracotta was the only thing I was allowed to use in my first ceramics course. And that was very much awful. I would wish for anything other than that. For anyone who happens to be going out and getting into the ceramics field, right? Terracotta, as cheap as it is, here's the thing, right? Terracotta is a low fire clay, right? So that means it will fire at a lower temperature than other types of clay. Other types of clay require the temperature to be a lot hotter before it cooks. Uh, so that's the benefit of terracotta. You can use it in a cheaper, the cost of firing is cheaper, so it's often used as a beginner clay. I do believe that terracotta has its uses. Oh, I'm kind of clipping, aren't I? One second here. Let me move myself a little bit lower there, so you don't see that I don't have a lower body. That'd be terrible, right? To imagine I don't have a lower body? Gray. Yes. If it was gray, it was probably a gray stoneware. And gray stoneware was one of my favorite clays to work with for sculptures. I do think gray is probably the standard, as it were. Gray happens to be used for a lot of wheel throwing. It's cheaper than pure kaolinite, which I know isn't the best, but gray stoneware also typically uses a lot less grog when possible. Yeah, it's a mixture of different clays, but it doesn't typically have the iron content of a red stoneware clay, right? Which makes it have slightly different properties, right? If you were really interested, and I'm not saying that you are, but if anyone were interested, there are different firing points based on different chemistries, based on different elemental compositions of your clay, different mixes as well. As we discussed, grog definitely changes how a clay fires. Yeah. I have no idea how we got to this topic, but yeah. Yeah, it was a high school program. You're right, you're right. Hey, just because it's a high school program doesn't mean you're not using good stuff, right? I don't think there is such a thing as a bad clay. I think what it comes down to is some clays are suited for certain jobs and others are not. You can definitely wheel throw terracotta, right? If you're making a flower pot, I would highly suggest wheel throwing terracotta, even though it's painful. I think the porous nature of the terracotta is exactly what you want for a flower pot, which happens to be why, probably, they use them in a lot of flower pots. Yes. The problem, of course, is the amount of grog in your terracotta, and terracotta often uses a lot of grog because terracotta is very porous, as I said, so it has a higher likelihood of exploding in the kiln if not dried properly. Gray stoneware is more forgiving in that sense. It's a higher fire clay, too, than terracotta, so it typically gets... well, it gets harder as well, right? And it gets a little bit more brittle, but it also lasts a bit longer because of that, right? It doesn't chip quite as easily. So, there are different uses for different clays. I don't really buy into the whole, this is a lower end clay than this is, or this isn't a good clay and that is, you know? Something like that. I think every clay has its use. You just have to figure out what it is. I wouldn't want to be making a ceramic sculpture out of something like porcelain, for example. You have to be very careful with porcelain clays. Porcelain's great, right? It can get very thin, and it retains its hardness. But at the same time, it's very brittle because of how thin you can make it. And if you make it right, it's very pretty. The way it's translucent, almost. And it takes pretty much any kind of glaze very well because of how white and pure it is. Yeah, you can put any kind of glaze on porcelain. Almost. Hmm? Ah, yes, yes. Kneading clay. Oh, I hated kneading clay. Kiln bombs. That's what we're talking about here, right? That's what we used to call them, kiln bombs. Yes. If you do not knead your clay and get all of the air pockets out, you have a high chance of ending up with a kiln bomb, where the moisture inside of a trapped air pocket gets so hot it vaporizes and turns to steam. That steam, being steam, has a lot of pressure pushing outward, and you can create quite the force of shattered ceramic. It's kind of like a small grenade going off in your kiln. Small shrapnel grenade, yes. Oh, that's unfortunate. I bet that was frustrating. I was very lucky, in my case, that I never had that happen to my pieces. I was very thorough with kneading, and I was very lucky that, like, it did happen, even in college, it did happen, that people were not very thorough with their kneading, and their pieces would explode, and there'd be little bits of ceramic embedded into your sculpture, or whatever it was. Your cups. Maybe they'd break a piece. Maybe it was just stuck in there. You're lucky if it got stuck in there, because at least then you could still use the piece, unless it got stuck in some kind of critical way, like at the rim of a cup. But yeah, I was very lucky. That's very unfortunate that your pieces were not. You have my sympathy there. I know how tough that can be because I always had to consider it. Kneading the clay over and over and over, just to make sure that every air pocket was out. And when you think you're done, you're not. Yeah. I don't know. Just being because it's high school, like... Yeah, I guess a lot of people care less in high school. But there's still a lot of people who care in high school, right? Like, there are people who are putting their heart and soul into whatever they're doing in their lives. And high school or not, I think they probably would have been... Some of them cared. Others maybe not. And I've known a lot of people who just didn't care in college, for example. So I don't know. I don't really buy that excuse. I think it was just lazy people. And I don't think laziness is any more common in high school than it is anywhere else. Maybe not lazy. Like, I knew a person who very much struggled despite trying her best, and it was a very unfortunate case for her because her sculptures would always crack, and she was very upset about that. Yeah. That takes me back. Okay. The people in your ceramics courses. Fair enough. I will accept your experience as your experience. Yes, fair enough. Okay. Yes, your experiences may vary. But generally, I do think there are all sorts of people in all sorts of places, you know? I don't know. Like, ceramics, it's not cheap, right? So it's not something that you can practice at home. You can't even take your sculptures home with you, right? Like, we couldn't. We had to do everything in our studio. And again, our high school did not even have a course on ceramics because of how expensive it was. I'll give you a little insight into the affluence of my high school. In my sophomore year, I do believe that our wood shop closed down. No, as our metal shop closed down my sophomore year. And then in my junior or senior year. I can't exactly remember. One of those, our wood shop closed down as well. So basically, we had no funding, as is fairly common in a lot of places. um, I don't even know if our arts program had funding. Like, I'm pretty sure the art teacher in our arts program was probably taking a huge hit just to teach us arts, you know? Like, some people actually care about teaching. Go figure. And they're willing to make sacrifices to ensure that the next generation actually learns something. If only everybody cared about education like that, right? Like, I'll admit, I do wish that I would have taken my education a little bit more seriously. And that's saying something. Oh, that is saying something. I was not a social butterfly. So I took my education very seriously, in fact. Oh, that was bad. We are getting unlucky here with this one. I took my education very seriously. Luck, right there. And even then, I wish I would have taken it more seriously. It's not like I went out to party or anything. I didn't. I was very much a bookworm. But I still feel like if I would have done more in my youth, I could have probably done a little bit better with things, yeah? Yeah. I don't know what things, but I regret not learning more. And that's very much an old man regret, right? Went to a decent high school? I'm glad you went to a decent high school. It does seem the case that arts programs tend to be underfunded. But if you had a ceramics program, that's still better than a lot of places, because yes, as you said, kilns are expensive. And that's just the kilns. Then you gotta talk about transporting clay costs and mixing up glazes costs, right? We're not even getting into slip, which tends to be somehow more expensive than some glazes. Like, I don't know what it is, but bright colors in slips tend to be pretty expensive. Depends on what they are, probably. Fundraisers. Ah, yes, yes. I do remember a lot of fundraisers. A lot of chocolate sales. I always found it funny, right? Like, we weren't allowed to have chocolates or candies or whatever in our high school unless they were doing a fundraiser. Then you could eat as much chocolate as you wanted. You just had to pay for it, yeah. From these exorbitant prices for the fundraisers. I'm very happy that you had the opportunity to go to a decently funded ceramics studio in your high school. There are nowadays there are outreach programs back home, back where I grew up, where it's not that there's a studio, but people with access to a studio will bring clay to a community, and then they will take the finished sculptures or cups or whatever back to a place with a kiln, and they'll fire them up there, and then they'll bring them back for you to glaze. And I think those kind of outreach programs are probably the best middle ground for a lot of places. So yes, kilns are expensive. Studio rentals are expensive. Studio access is expensive if you're doing that just for access. I highly recommend looking for those kind of outreach programs. Oh, I see we have a black bar at the top. I don't like that, but I'll fix that next time. Selling coupon books. Now that's something I'm not familiar with. Your band program sold coupon books. I have to think about that. I don't know how that would work, right? Like, what are the cost incentives there for a fundraiser? Okay, imagine. Let's put some concrete costs into the effect here, right? Say that your coupon books were worth $10. It didn't have to be, it could have been more. Um, but say your coupon books offer a total of, say, $15 in savings. Like, where are you getting your cost benefits here? Maybe the coupon books would have cost $5 to manufacture. Maybe it was costing nothing because you're at, or maybe the cost of getting the coupons themselves from the manufacturers cost nothing because the manufacturers wanted the advertisement. Like, people who have a coupon are more likely to buy a product than people who do not have a coupon, right? So maybe they're making money off of that. But I don't see how you would make money off of coupon books. That seems like a very interesting prospect, and I've never even thought about it. Like, I always get coupon books in the mail. Like, okay, not coupon books, but say, little coupon magazines, or like local grocery stores or whatever. Like, you'll get a coupon page in your newspaper. I know, I'm an old man, I read newspapers. Here's the thing, right? Like, not every place in the world has digital news available to them. Sometimes the only way to get local news is to use a newspaper. And sometimes it matters, right? Like, if your local community is voting on some kind of thing. Like, here, recently, I think there was a push to allow livestock in our town. I know what you're thinking, livestock in your town, that seems crazy. But they were chickens, specifically, right? Chickens and fowl. Yeah. They wanted to allow people with yards to have chicken coops, even if they were living in a town that typically does not allow livestock, right? So there was a petition for that going around. And I would have had no idea if I had not read the local news. I always thought it was strange that was the case. $30? Save you hundreds if you somehow used every coupon. Okay. So it's like an insurance thing here. I see local businesses. I like that. I like the idea of local businesses specifically. That makes a lot of sense. But it does seem like it's the insurance business kind of model, where you're assuming that most people who buy the coupon book won't actually use every coupon. Which makes sense, right? Like, if they're local businesses, they probably had things like carpenters and roofers and AC repair, HVAC people, you know, stuff like that. You don't typically need that every year, and those coupons might expire. Oh, the stream's cutting in and out? I'm not actually dropping frames, so I don't know what's going on here. I have 0 dropped frames today. This is very strange. I have been having internet issues as of late, but I have dropped 0 frames, and my upload speed is staying consistent, around 4,000 kilobits per second. And I'm not having any spikes in my CPU or GPU, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there, Diana. I will keep an eye on it. Interesting. I have been having problems. I might have my video recording settings off. I was doing some different recordings and stuff. So it's quite possible that I am cutting in and out because of that instead of my internet. The only thing I can really tell you with any certainty is my internet does not seem to be at fault this time. Despite my ISP being quite terrible, I can assure you, in this case, OBS is telling me it's not the case. Ton of restaurant coupons. I do like local restaurants, right? Local restaurants don't get the love they deserve, especially if they're using local ingredients. I've been to a couple local restaurants that do not use local ingredients, and I just wonder to myself what exactly I'm doing going to this restaurant. Like, I could go to the grocery store myself and get ingredients from far away if I wanted them. Unfreeze them and make them at home for a cheaper price. Maybe you want the atmosphere, I don't know. I'm not quite that, I don't know what the right word for that is. Maybe I'm just cynical, right? Like, there is a price to atmosphere, but I've known places that just unthaw things and throw them in an oven, a deep fryer, whatever the case may be for that specific item. And they're like grocery store brands that I could buy myself, and they're charging huge markups for whatever reason. I have to assume it's a scam. Hmm? Buffering on your side? I hope not. I don't know what to tell you, Diana. I'll definitely take a look after the stream. Thank you for telling me. I do appreciate that. I do know that my ISP has been messing around in the background as of late. Just the other day, they reset everything, like a breaker or whatever, some kind of relay in the lines, and the whole block apparently had problems. And when I say block, I mean more than a city block. It's more widespread than that, more spread out. It's kind of interesting how the infrastructure is built around here. I don't want to get too much into it, just in case that's unusual, and anyone could track me down based on that. But I can tell you that there was an outage not too long ago. A couple days, maybe. Lasted a fairly long time, a couple minutes, maybe. And, of course, they never really inform you that they're going to do it before they do it. Tourist trap restaurant? Oh, pierogi burger. Oh. It's never fun, is it? Tourist trap restaurants. There are plenty of tourist trap restaurants. Not here. Like, there is some tourism here. Being in the middle of nowhere, we have a lot of nature. So there is some tourism, especially in the summers. But, I don't know. I've definitely been to touristy places in, like, beach towns for vacations. And yeah, sometimes you do recognize things like pierogies. You know what? I don't know if most people will even know what a pierogi is, Diana. So a pierogi is basically, think of a ravioli, but the dough is around potato. Mashed potato. That's what a pierogi is. And it's often served in a sauce comprised of melted butter and onions, which I have to tell you, that combination of smells makes me incredibly ill. It's one of the few smells in the world that just instantly makes me ill. Onions cooking in butter. So I really can't do a lot of French cooking. I can't smell it, at least. Eating it's fine. But that must have been very disappointing, yeah. Yeah, if they mention it on the menu, that's one thing, but trying to pass it off as something else, yeah. Like, how hard is it to make a pierogi? You have to make a dough, which is just like any other pasta dough. Not that hard. You have to mash potatoes. You have to put the potatoes in the dough and wrap it, or not wrap it, but sheet it and dimple it so that it's kind of like a ravioli. It's not that hard to make pierogi. Yeah, it really isn't. I would be very disappointed if I went to a restaurant. Okay, first of all, I would be very disappointed to get a pierogi burger. No offense, Diana. But I don't know about that combination. Like, I'm the type of person who would put French fries on my burgers. I typically do. When I make French fries with my burgers, I will put a layer of French fries on my burgers. And I know there are things like potato buns. I'm not against those. But I have to wonder what the thought process behind a pierogi burger might be there. I think most people enjoy pierogies for the butter and onion sauce, in fact. Right? Hmm. Yes. You know, a lot of people actually enjoy the smell of butter and onions. Like, it is one of the classic smells in cooking. I just can't do it. I don't know what it is. It smells very off-putting to me. Kind of like feet, right? Like, if you've ever smelled a foot, that's what a foot smells like to me. It smells like butter and onions. Maybe foot smells smell differently to me than they do to you. I hope I'm not ruining the smell of butter and onions to you. But that is exactly how it smells to me. And I gotta say, every single time I get nauseated, and it just takes me hours to get over it. I have nothing against pierogies. I have nothing against the taste of butter and onions together. It is everything to do with the smell of butter and onions together. What can I say? Like, Yeah, why not? Sometimes it is interesting to try new things, right? I can't exactly blame you for that. Trying new things, especially on a vacation. I could see that. I once went to a restaurant that did nothing but sell egg dishes. So dishes based on eggs. Scrambled, omelets, whatever. Yeah, okay. I could see that. If you're out on a vacation and you want to try new things, that's part of the fun of a vacation, right? Traveling and having new experiences. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just stay at home? And if you like pierogies, yeah, I could see you wanting to mix them together. Again, I have nothing against potato and hamburger. I think it's a fantastic combination. So maybe I'm just being weird about this. I think the texture of a soggy pierogi noodle seems a bit off-putting for a hamburger, but that's just my bias, right? I'm probably very biased and unaware of it. Smelling weird feet. Thankfully, I have not been smelling anyone's feet as of late, but yeah, I have smelled some pretty weird feet. I went to a public high school, and there were a lot of athletes. So there was definitely a lot of athlete's foot going around. So, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe the locker rooms that you had in your school smelled differently than the locker rooms that I had in my high school. Maybe I'm just remembering it wrong, right? Like, this is... Ooh, let's see here. About 15 years ago for me, maybe. Maybe a little bit less. But yeah, it's something like that. So maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly. But I distinctly, in my head, picture the smell of butter and onions as foot smell. Yeah. And I know some people say certain cheeses smell like feet, and I don't smell it. Like, brie, I think, has a foot aroma for most people. And it has something to do with the bacterial cultures, the penicillium bacterial cultures that they use for the rinds. I don't smell it. Yeah. It definitely has an odd aroma, but it's not footy in the sense that I'm familiar with the smell of feet. uh, hmm. Oh, I see. Sauteed pierogies. That would not fly here. Pierogies are never sauteed around here. I bet that would taste great, though. Essentially a noodle-crusted fried potato. Yeah, fried mashed potato bits. So it'd be like a tater tot, only, with a noodle covering. I bet that'd be pretty good, in fact. Yeah. Wonderful conversation, food and feet. Yeah, yeah. It's as good a combination as spaghetti and meatballs. That's right. I don't know. I think onions just have a footy smell in general, to me. Maybe, maybe feet smell like onions to me. I don't know. Some people probably enjoy the smell of feet, right? I'm not particularly one of them. I don't even like the look of feet most of the time. Sorry to switch this from pierogies to feet. I don't know. Just one of those nights, right? Like, you never know what's going on. Tonight is very off the cuff. I have notes prepared. I'm not even looking at them. Like, we just talked about ceramics and foot pierogies. That's fine, right? You don't mind the foot pierogies. I don't know. Yeah, onions. People like onions. I like onions too. I like raw onions better than I do cooked onions. I think most people probably enjoy cooked onions a bit better, but I like the more pungent burn of a raw onion. And I know a lot of people might be balking at the thought of eating a raw onion. I don't necessarily do that. I will typically put them in something. I'm not just biting into an onion like I bite into a lemon. We're not eating apples here. We got it all here, yeah. Yeah, this is what happens when I'm having one of these nights where, you know, it's been a while since I've streamed, so I really don't have much of a filter anymore. Yeah. Last week I was doing the whole Father's Day thing, and this week there's gonna be a little bit of rust, right? And in this case, rust could be foot smell. Yeah. Locker room smell, right? Ah, heartburn. I've heard that a lot. You know, one of the common foods I hear gives heartburn is like cooked pepper. I have never had heartburn from cooked pepper, and I've never had heartburn from cooked or raw onion. I've only ever had heartburn, I think, from yeah, from cooked onion, not uncooked onion. So I don't know. Maybe maybe the esophagus there is different. I know everybody has different gut flora. We're not even talking about gut flora when it comes to heartburn, right? Heartburn mostly comes from stomach acid. So, I don't know. Maybe your stomach is more acidic. Maybe you can't tolerate onions nearly as well. I don't know, there are a bunch of different possibilities there. It's very unfortunate if you can't have raw onion, because I think raw onion really makes most sandwiches better. It makes most salads better. And one of my favorite ways to eat raw onion isn't technically raw. It's a type of quick pickle, right? So you slice onions and you slice cucumbers really thin into thin rings, and then you put those in a equal mixture of water and vinegar with some salt and pepper to flavor, of course. And you let that pickle for a couple of days, and you can just eat that. It's a fantastic little fresh salad. Like, refrigerate it over the course of a couple days. Don't just leave it out and ferment it. Although I do like fermented things as well. Do refrigerate that one. Quick pickles are wonderful. Yes, they are. Oh, your stomach's more acidic. That's unfortunate. Yeah. It really is unfortunate if you have stomach issues. A lot of people in my family have stomach issues of one type or another. Crohn's disease, celiac disease, any kind of problem, irritable bowel. A lot of people in my family have heartburn, but I think that's just because they're Italians and they like to eat food that would cause heartburn. So I don't know about that specifically, but yes, stomach issues are one of the most absolutely awful things, I think. Like, the quality of life, just dealing with any kind of stomach issue, not ideal. I think if you have stomach issues, that really messes with everything else. It messes with your energy levels because it messes with your metabolism, it messes with your desire to eat things. Yeah, I don't think it's great. So you definitely have my sympathy there. I do wish medicine would get on that. Like, I know there are a lot of important issues in modern medicine, but digestive health really is an underserved health field, I think. Yeah. Like, we've only in recent years gotten into mainstream probiotic use, and I don't know where I am on the fence of probiotics, but at least it's a step in the right direction for gut health, right? And this has nothing to do with acidity, or stomach acid and indigestion and acid reflux. It might, I don't know. But yeah, if you enjoy quick pickles, I'm sure that's not helping with your stomach acidity either. But they are fantastic on sandwiches and in salads as well. I do love them so. Like, I would used to drink the pickling brine right out of the jar, you know? That's how much I enjoy sour foods. Bite into a lemon. You can check my channel if you haven't seen that video of me biting into a lemon. That was early Hyde content. Yeah, early Hyde content. But I really love sour foods. True story. Oh no. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, back pain from stomach issues. That is a common thing. I believe it's called deferred pain. And, yes, it is not fun. Your entire lower back, right? Oh, have I been there. And I don't even have the stomach issues of my family, right? That's just very unfortunate, Diana. You definitely have my sympathy for that, too. That makes life miserable when you have, oh, that pain. It's like right by your kidneys, isn't it? That's where I get it. Yeah. Usually when I don't sleep well, I'll end up with that kind of pain. Right in my kidneys. The back area where the kidneys would be. Not ideal, for sure. So, I'm very happy if your medications are helping you with that, keeping those flares in check. Maybe medicine hasn't forsaken us entirely. Yeah, it's very sad when we can't eat the foods that we enjoy because of our digestive health. I know a lot of my family members had the very same issue with, you can't eat this, it's too high in salts. You can't eat this, it's too high in fats. You have to have your gallbladder removed because you can't eat fats anymore. That kind of thing. I got very lucky, and that my digestive system is mostly acceptable. Yeah, so, all I can really do is offer my sympathy instead of my empathy there. Yeah. I do really enjoy sour foods as well, so just thinking about it, it would be a huge loss to me if I could not eat sour foods. Because yes, as you say, sour is... I'm glad you enjoy sour foods, even if you can't have them, because sour foods are really fantastic foods. If you think about it, sour foods offer some of the greatest bioavailability of nutrients out there, right? If you take a cabbage and you lacto-ferment it using lactobacillus and other wild cultured yeasts and whatever else, bacteria, whatever. I'm not picky. I am not picky. But if you lacto-ferment it, then all of the, well, not all of them, but a lot of nutrients in the cabbage become more bioavailable. And that's true for a lot of lacto-fermented foods as well. And lacto-fermented foods, unfortunately, often are sour because of the lactobacillus, right? Yeah. Yes, you get lactic acid as a byproduct of the lacto-fermentation. Which is very unfortunate if you can't have a bunch of acids. Like, I can't even tell you how much of my diet is fermented foods. I can only tell you it's a very high percentage. I don't even know how I would survive without fermented foods, right? Like, my sourdough culture, which for the first time in years I forgot to feed yesterday. That was very, very sad. I had to feed it as quickly as possible. Luckily, it turned out okay. Yeah, I'm very happy to report that my little sourdough culture is doing just fine. Yes, very okay. Even though I forgot to feed it for about 12 hours. Yes, good bacteria. Probiotics back at it, right? Like I said, I'm not quite sure how I feel about probiotics. I know forest soils, right? And I know forest soils have um, a whole microcosm of mycelium, and that mycelium from those fungal cultures are basically what allow a forest to grow how it grows, healthily and steadily. And I guess if you compare a human to that, then our gut flora would be the same thing, the same kind of probiotic thing. But I don't know. Like, nothing in nature is ever as cut and dry as it first appears. So I don't know. Like, I know a lot of probiotics, they don't make it through the stomach acid of the stomach, right? There are some specific breeds of probiotics that can withstand stomach acids. There are, like, I have a tea that has some probiotic bacterial culture that can withstand upwards of 190 degrees Fahrenheit, which is typically a little bit cooler than the tea would brew, right? But that's still very impressive. Like, that is almost boiling, and the probiotics can withstand that. I don't know if they can withstand something like stomach acid, but even if they could, let's assume that these probiotics could withstand stomach acid, uh, independent of being in food, right? Like a lot of probiotics, they say they've got to be in the food so that they get into the gut. I don't know if that's true either. I'm not a physician. I'm not a nutritionist. I don't study probiotics. I studied rocks, right? Rocks were a lot easier than these human systems. But let's say that it's true that the bacteria can withstand the stomach acid environment and make it to your guts. Well, your guts already have micro a or what's the word I'm looking for? Gut floral ecology. Yes, let's go with ecology. Your guts have ecologies of their own. So they have cultures in them already that they're thriving. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So you kind of have to displace a culture of bacteria in order to put a new one in there. So if you were to put a new one in there and not displace it, maybe it would be outcompeted just by nature of, you know, not having the opportunity to reproduce in an already saturated environment. So, I don't know. I don't know if I buy it. I think there are just too many variables that haven't been accounted for. Like, theoretically it could be possible. But I don't think eating these cultures of probiotics is necessarily the best way to do that either. I hate to talk about this after something like a food discussion, but if you know the science, then you know exactly where my mind is going. And we're going to be talking about a topic that is not necessarily polite, but if you're going to talk about probiotics, it's just the way I think you have to do it. So, if you don't want to hear a gross talk, feel free to leave. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about Something potentially gross. Yeah. Okay. 3, 2, 1. If you're still here, we're gonna be talking about fecal transplants. Yeah. So, in recent years, there have been studies on people who've gone through things like radiation therapy, chemotherapy, intensive antibiotic treatments, and their gut flora have just been completely devastated. Hey, I'm warning people here. I don't usually talk about gross stuff, just my toe hair, right? And gross foot smells, and other things. I don't know if you were here for my toe hair. Yeah. If you weren't, consider yourself lucky. Maybe you left a comment on it, come to think of it. I don't even remember. I don't remember talking about my gross toe hair. Other people talk about my gross toe hair more than I talk about my gross toe hair. Except for now, with me talking about my gross toe hair. It's not actually that gross. I've seen grosser. Like other people in my family, because of the virtue of being Italian. You can imagine. I'm actually on the lower end of that spectrum. Of the Italianness. Yes. I'm allowed to say it. Anyway, fecal transplants. People who have compromised gut flora, completely devastated for one reason or another, they can get something called a fecal transplant. And it's exactly what it sounds like. They take feces from a donor with healthy gut biota inside of it, and they insert that in the transplant recipient through not the mouth. And I think that's probably the best way of getting probiotics into a body, because it completely bypasses the stomach and the need for stomach acid resistance. And as gross as it sounds, it does seem to help with people who have had compromised gut health. So yeah, I know science is pretty gross sometimes, but I think that's how it has to be. It's no different from taking a patch of soil from a forest and using that as a medium to transplant mycelium for forest growth, you know? I do think it's very much the same. We're just talking about different bodies, or different sizes, or different scales, or different organisms. I know, fecal transplants have been eyed for a lot of different gut health issues. Things like, well, I told you there's Crohn's in my family, and Crohn's is an autoimmune disease, but it's not necessarily one related to gut health, or, well, yes, related to gut health, microbiota, gut flora, as it were. But there are some doctors out there who think that some of the inflammation is related to inconsistent microcolonies or cultures in your own gut flora. I don't know if that's true either. Again, human systems were much too complex for me. I wanted nothing to do with human systems, but here I am talking about them, as if I'm some kind of expert. I'm not. I'm not. If you want medical advice, do not talk to me. Or me. I'm not actually a doctor either. It's just my name. Yeah, remember that. I'm not a doctor. I cannot give you medical advice. I would not want to. Don't you think that's just way too much responsibility? Being responsible for a human's life? I could not do that. I could not look myself in the mirror every day if I were responsible for someone else's life. I think that'd be horrible. Rocks change. Yeah, well... I don't know, it depends on the rock. I know some rocks weather at almost perceptible speeds, right? Some things weather very quickly. If you take some pyrite and you put some acid rain on it, it will definitely erode. Yeah, it will chemically weather very quickly. So I don't know. Some rocks do change much slower. I think the more pressing issue is no one's going to be upset if I smash a rock and I can't put it back together. If you smash a human and you can't put it back together, that's a different story, right? Surgeons all the time get malpractice suits, even though most of them are just doing their job to the best of their abilities. I don't know. Personally, I think I would smash myself up if I couldn't do the job of a surgeon as well as I would want to. I would have too high standards for myself, I think. If I could even do the work. I want to be clear, I'm not a narcissist here, I don't think I could do surgery. But if I were trained in surgery, and if I could do it, I think there would be a psychological issue in myself where I just couldn't tolerate any kind of flaws or any kind of imperfections. Because we're messing with human lives here, right? Okay, in general. Yeah, in general, sure. You know, in general, you have to wonder how much rock is out there. Like, what's the most common rock? Probably, peridotite in the lower mantle would be the most common rock, right? So, rocks made of olivines and ultramafic minerals. And if you brought those to the surface, they would weather very quickly, because they are not used to surface conditions. So any amount of water will lead to weathering, any amount of pressure changes would lead to weathering, any amount of temperature changes would lead to chemical instability. Yes, metastability is the process, or is what it would have while it was on the surface. Anyway, I think that's where we're gonna end it. I do apologize for starting early today. I figured, hey, I haven't been here for a week. I'm not gonna announce it, and I didn't. I wasn't feeling that great, but I had a good time, and I appreciate you all showing up, even if you just lurked. And Diana, it was good to see you back. I hope your suffering ends as quickly and painlessly as possible, even if it is quite a while away. Yeah, actually that's exactly what it's like. If you bring a mineral from the deep mantle to the surface, it ends up very unstable, or in a very metastable state. Much like how a fish is exerting pressure outwards, the crystal structure is used to a certain amount of pressure going inwards against itself. So that lack of pressure will lead to, in some cases, crystalline deformation of the crystal lattice. Yeah. So yes, it is exactly like that. Also, you could add water on that. Anyway, I had a good time. Thank you for showing up. Nice to see you. I love you all. But for now, Hyde out. See you next time.